When the sun lowers toward the horizon and the sky turns black, when lines blur and things are not exactly what they seem, when the normal makes way for the strange and unexplained, it's time to question what is natural and what lies beyond our understanding. It's time to enter the edge of the unknown with your host, Mark Henry.
It is the edge of the unknown. Everything that is strange happens here. Holy cats. I went out today to clear my driveway out, and it was 4 degrees. And I was told that the high was going to be 22, and it actually got up to 8. So, wow. The person that I'm talking to this evening, a wonderful guest who has been part of the Edge of the Unknown in the past, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn, is actually coming to us from California, where it's a heck of a lot different and in much different weather circumstances, but we'll get to that in just a second. Thanks for hanging out with me here on the Edge of the Unknown. Thanks for hanging out on the All One Broadcast Radio Network. As I want to do, I come at you every Sunday evening from 8 to 10 p.m. In the summer. I think we're going to go back to a 3-hour format, and I know I keep saying that, and I said I was actually going to do that earlier this year, but with the other things that I've got going on in my other facets of life outside of radio, we're going to have to hold on and maybe do a little something like that in the summer. Lots of cool stuff coming up for you. I want to remind everybody, next week I will not be live to air here on allonebroadcast.com. It is the Super Bowl, and quite frankly, I told everybody that I was not going to have a show because the Saints were going to be in the Super Bowl. They're not in the Super Bowl, sadly. They fell to the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are in. So at any rate, I will not have a show, but there will be a best of program on for that portion of Sunday night. But February 9th, we are back. Kicking off the month of February, I am terribly excited to have a really neat guest on. It's a guy that I've been talking to for a couple of months and going back and forth, and when we could actually work something out. We're going to be talking about black magic and Satanism. Winter Lake will be my guest on February 9th. Very smart guy, very sharp, very talented, and a little bit offbeat. He's got a lot of things that he believes that most mainstream folks might not agree with, might not actually see the same way that he sees the world. But winter is going to be on, and it's going to be an awesome time. Ron Bowles and Jim Sherman will be on from the Bigfoot Field Research Organization on February 16th. They are going to be here. We're going to be arguing about hats. As I mentioned last week, we are all huge fans of hats, but we're also going to be talking about Sasquatch, the investigations that go on with the BFRO, and these guys are really excellent guests to have when we talk about Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever you want to call about, because these are guys who go out into the field to look into what is happening out there. These are guys who, spend a lot of time and a lot of resources trying to find out if there really is something running around, a bipedal creature in our midst that we might not normally see. These guys are going to be very entertaining. Hopefully you will be around for that. And again, on February 23rd, author Richard Southall. He is the author of Ghosts of Route 66 and So You Want to Be a Ghost Hunter. He is going to be on the show to talk a little bit about his experience with hunting ghosts, investigating ghosts, and tips, stuff to avoid, stuff to do. That's going to be a lot of fun as well. But as I mentioned earlier, my guest this evening is someone who is no stranger to this program. She is a nurse practitioner. She is a professor, and she is an author of a wonderful book called Turning Tragedy into Triumph. You can find that on Amazon.com, but I stress everyone to go to her website, which is www.metahab.com, Metahab. Find out a little bit more about her if you're playing from home listening on the All One Broadcast Radio Network. If you're listening in to this show on our TuneIn radio app, you can always flip over to allonebroadcast.com. That is the number one. Click on the button that says Live Chat Room. You can shoot us questions there. We will be taking questions throughout the evening if you are interested in getting a hold of us there, and I highly suggest that you can also shoot us a message straight to me on email, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. The phone line for this evening, 717-298-7460, 717-298-7460. Lots of excellent information to get to you tonight, and it is my pleasure, as I mentioned before, to welcome back to the Edge of the Unknown, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Dr. Joyce, it is so great to have you back on the Edge of the Unknown. How are you in sunny California?
Well, I actually, I was telling you earlier, I have two children that live in New York, and one in Hoboken and one in Manhattan, and I keep up with the weather because of them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel bad because here in California, well, the good news is it's beautiful and it's sunny and it's lovely, but the bad news is that comes with a price because we have been without rain or snow in the mountains for quite a while, so it is taking its toll, but it is lovely out here right now, so. I don't know if I could handle those teen weather sports. I just am like, oh my gosh.
Well, we talked earlier. You were watching the hockey game in New York City,
yes.
And the Rangers won. So I happen to be a Rangers fan,
that.
so which is awesome.
Yeah, well, and one handle. I mean, was it 7-3?
Yeah, it was an ass kicking. Pardon my French for anybody who doesn't like me. So, but the temperatures do not keep us down here. Actually, I just flicked over and saw it's 16 here in Western New York,
okay.
But we're fine. Everything is ace. Dr. Joyce, again, as I mentioned, it's a pleasure to have you on. But I really want to just jump right into things to talk a little bit about your background and talk about metahabilitation. This is something that is, in a lot of ways, it's very groundbreaking, and it's something that I think a lot of people would be interested to hear, because a lot of times we hear about, well, eat this food, or, do this and do that and all this sort of thing. You have a very long track record of talking about working with folks who have had their lives interrupted for this kind of trauma or this kind of disaster. Let's talk a little bit about who you are. Let's talk a little bit about how you got into metahabilitation, and then we can actually talk about metahabilitation.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I know. I was listening to who your guests are going to be coming up, and I was kind of writing down some words about how sometimes people are out of the mainstream, and I think metahabilitation kind of fits that, where it's not quite mainstream. We're trying to make it a little bit more mainstream, but it isn't. So I'll kind of go into how it all came about. And when I was 35 years old, which is a little while ago, I died. I am a very avid athlete, marathon runner, triathlete, and I was at a swim meet with my 3 children and my husband, and I have no memory of any of this except because it happened on a Sunday afternoon, and I have retrograde amnesia, and I really don't have any memory for probably 2 weeks of my life with any of this. But apparently they had a fun adult relay because it was a big championship swim meet for kids. And I grabbed my husband and a couple people because I'd been training a lot and said, come on, we're going to win this. I insisted on swimming the last lap of the relay, got in the pool, swam, finished at the side of the pool that was 13 feet deep, and just sunk to the bottom. And they realized I wasn't coming up. My husband dove to the bottom of the pool, pulled me to the side, And luckily there were some parents of kids there who were physicians, and so I received 22 minutes of CPR at poolside. They got my heart going again. They landed a helicopter in a field close to where we were at, took me to the hospital. My heart stopped again in the helicopter. They got it going, and that is when my life as I knew it at 35 years old was completely changed. And I didn't know how it was changed, and I didn't know what was going to happen to me. I just, knew that the life I knew was no more. And I had to figure out eventually how to make a new life. And I had obviously a lot of problems. There was parts of my life I don't remember at all. When I first came to, I didn't recognize my husband. I didn't recognize my children. I got home. I didn't recognize, I would ask my children, where were the dishes in the kitchen? What did I wear? What did I used to do? I was really kind of at a loss. And, things went on, and I got scared and afraid and angry and all those things that survivors go through. And then you kind of come to the realization, and I did this over time, that you have to make a decision about moving forward. And so you do make, I did make a decision. I didn't know how this was all going to happen, but I made a conscious decision that I was going to move forward in a productive way. And as that came about, long story, but I ended up going back to school in order to try and get cognitively more together. I went back to school and earned a master's degree studying people who had survived death events, who had survived near-death events. And the focus was not so much on did they see the light, did they not? Because a lot of people who go through death events, who survive death events, don't have that. And sometimes I think we get too into, did you have that or not, or that's the focus. The focus is the return. You came back. And when you come back, how do you incorporate that experience into your life in a meaningful way? So I looked at that, and then eventually I started seeing patients that I would deal with, or reading books or whatever, and seeing, examples of extreme survivorship, where people did extremely well and in their survivorship, and not in spite of what happened to them, but as a direct result of this event. And it really made their life so much more meaningful. It transcended them. It literally transcended them into another part. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over time. So I wanted to look at not only why does that happen, but how. So my doctoral research focused on people who had gone through major catastrophic events who I identified as going well. And I not only went into their event, but I also looked in their background. How did they grow up? What was their spiritual background? All that kind of stuff. And so it came to the point that when I reviewed all of these very extensive interviews, I looked at this and I thought, there's a system here. There really was a progression. They didn't identify it, but I could see it as a progression. So I identified stages. And then I identified what I called facilitating conditions or characteristics of these people that really led them or put them in a projection that they were going to do well or better as a result of these. And so I thought that the term rehabilitation was very small, that it really, if you look it up, it really only consists of reaching baseline and going back. And I thought, no, people transcend. They go above and beyond. Oh, I know. So I just made up the word metahabilitation. And to me, metahabilitation, what I use in my book and what I use now in my workbooks, is the notion that you go above and beyond a simple restorative state, that you move to a higher level of functioning as a direct result of the trauma or crisis that you sustained. So that's really how it came about. So there was a book that came out in 2011, and then last summer I put together, people wanted to know, well, this is a great idea, and they kind of get it, but how do you use it? How would I metahabilitate? So I came out with 2 workbooks, one for the survivor and one for family and friends, because their lives changed too. People, I'll get into this, but a lot of that came about. I had a unique opportunity to interview and sit with the race director for the Boston Marathon last summer. And he and I, I've run the Boston before, and we've talked about, we kind of talked about what trauma is like and everything. And one of the things that he brought forward that really made sense to me too is you have collateral trauma victims too. So they might not have sustained the initial injury, but they're traumatized by what happened. So he talked about like the volunteers who were at the Boston Marathon who thought I don't know if you've ever been to the Boston, but it's a huge fun time. It's a fun, big celebrity fun event. And to have this happen and to see these kids from different colleges who thought they were going to have to put a Band-Aid on a blister, and then now they're rolling people in a wheelchair who have lost limbs. It was very traumatic. So we talked about that. So I have a workbook for survivors, for family and friends of survivors, and then I have people can be certified in Metahabilitation. So I have something for clinicians and therapists. So it has evolved. I'm 35 when I had my initial accident. I did my research, my master's work 2 years after that, so between the ages of like 37 and 39, and then I, raised family, children, etc., and then went on to do my doctorate, and my doctoral research was in 2005, and was, and the dissertation came out in 2007, and the book came out in 2011, and then the manuals last summer. So it's been a progression over time. And it works because you have to think about things, and things come to you, and understanding comes to you at a more in-depth level. So that's how it all happened. And I actually started a company that I call Metahab, so you'll see it on the thing. And we had to come up with a tagline. I wanted to come up with like a sentence, like, how Nike Just Do It.
Right.
And so we kind of came together, and I love our tagline. Instead of being a sentence, it's actually 3 words. It's Metahab, and underneath it says, survive, adapt, amaze. And I love that because really it is these events, near-death events, other events, people do come back. They do say yes to life. What has happened to them allows them to survive. They have to adapt, but then they have this profound opportunity to amaze. So that's how it's all come about.
And it's amazing that the way that you approached all this was not to focus on, as you mentioned, the bright light and all this other fantastical stuff that you might not be able to prove one way or the other. You took it as a sign to, hey, this happens to people, and there obviously is a different way of approaching life when you do die and come back. And I just find it fascinating that that's what you chose to do, rather than focus on, hey, there is another side or that sort of thing, which a lot of people really tend to go after because it's so much more fantastical. It's so much more, I hate to use the word, it's so much more sexy to talk about the afterlife rather than, hey, you came back, here's how to deal with life after you've died.
Mm-hmm. And people who have, I personally, this is kind of a belief that I have that I've, that has evolved over time. I have retrograde amnesia. I don't remember anything. I really believe, I totally believe that I was someplace else. I just don't remember all of that. But there are things that have happened to me that is very clear that there's things in my life that I look back and go, boy, that's a direct result of, I know something happened. And whether, there are just people who have passed away that I know have influenced what I'm doing, because things that happen to me, people I'm put in touch with, things that happen, I go, there's some sort of spiritual energy that's flowing around here that I feel very close to. Not having the memory of it, I think, sometimes throws people off. And I've kind of gotten over that. I thought, well, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just don't remember it. But I do definitely see things in my life that shows me that there's, that you have this little connection. Now, the part of it that's most important is not to just focus on, well, do you have this connection? Having that connection and understanding that, what are you doing with that? What are you doing with that? So I think moving past and saying, oh, yeah, this is, or people who actually do remember having that, I think it's fantastic. But my thing is, where are we going with that? You can't just sit there with it. It's sort of like, yeah, you get a degree from college. That's awesome. Well, what are you going to do with that now? How are you going to be of service? How are you going to influence the world? Like, maybe moving past the mainstream type of rehabilitation that we tend to focus on, the deleterious, negative things that happen, and say instead, no, wait a second. You're not going to see this right now, but if we change our mindset and wrap our heads around the fact that ultimately we can become better as a result of this, and I didn't make this up. This has been around for centuries. Plato, Aristotle talked about this, but how in my business as the medical nursing community, how are we doing this? And I just had this very unique experience of being in the profession and having this accident, and it gave me vision on both sides, and I could see the gap. And I thought, we need this. No, we cannot keep doing treating these crises and traumas as endpoints. They are beginning points. They are not endpoints.
And honestly, I think that is, as I said before, it's an interesting way to look at it, because a lot of people are always looking for, and I'm not, I guess that maybe that's a foolish way to say it, but I think a lot of people are looking for something really crazy to come through, whether it's a sense of feeling, it's a sense of visual, it's a sense of hearing. We are all looking for some kind of reassurance that something does happen after our physical bodies, they go away. And the hardcore skeptics will say, well, your brain is a computer, and as soon as it shuts down, and that's all there is to it. But even on that side, they are still terribly interested to know what happens. We can't possibly, but when you're talking about what you're talking about right now, it is a gift and it is a message, whether or not it's what we thought it would be, to cherish the lives that we have while we're still alive.
Yeah, and I I totally get that. I mean, even if you wanted to use it, like when I deal with patients with heart disease, let's just say, or high cholesterol, and they'd say, really, if I lower my cholesterol, is that going to make me live longer? And I'd say, well, yeah, there is information out there that will show you. Or if I exercise, will that really make me live longer? Yes, there is definitely evidence out there that does show that. But the other part of that is, if you do those kinds of things, I'll tell you, the life you're living, the life you have, is going to be better. So why don't you focus on that instead of always thinking about, is this going to make me, say, yeah, you want to have, goals set for the future, but also you want to enjoy and embrace and accept and appreciate the life that you have now. And that's one of the things that I think that was one of the most profound aspects of my recovery process. And I'm sure this happens with people who have gone through near-death events. And the other thing I will tell you, too, you have to, I like to expand the idea of what a near-death event is, because, I'm working right now with a group of addicts and alcoholics. And, we talk about the fact that, in all honesty, when your life shuts down spiritually, physically, emotionally, mentally, these people do come out of a near-death event. They do. And they can have, once they turn things around, they can have that spiritual awakening, that sense of their, inner strength and idea about what's going on. So I don't like to just, put down that people have a near-death event when they're flatlining, that I think we do have those throughout our life.
Right.
So.
Well, that's a great way to put it. There are different flat lines, whether it's being on your own deathbed, but in a lot of ways there are people who are on their own deathbed, but not in the same way that you're in an ambulance or you're in in a hospital and ready to say goodbye to this world. A lot of other people do have those sorts of experiences. Sure.
Yeah, and they're lovely, and and people. I don't ever minimize those. I allow people to talk about those. I don't think we should be scared of those. I think we should recognize that there's no question in my mind. There is this connection between spiritual life, physical life, but there is that connection. And maybe, just maybe, having these events, and whether it's an NDE or whether it's surviving a horrible car accident or whether it's surviving a divorce or whether whatever, maybe these events are what provides that profound vehicle for us to be reconnected more with that part of our being. And I see that in a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to go to people who have that and go, well, how does that happen, so we can start to utilize this lovely transformative ideology into mainstream rehab therapy for the person who's divorced or the person who has cancer or the athlete who's, got a career-ending or season-ending injury or just, getting out of their sport at a young age. I mean, all those kinds of things. There's a death and then there's a rebirth. You die to your past experience, and we've learned a lot from NDEs to give us that idea. So anyway.
Holy cats, I just thought of a really great question, and I'm going to follow up with that the minute that you said that. My guest here this evening on The Edge of the Unknown is Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're talking about her book, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. You can find that at her website, metahab.com. That is metahab.com. If you want to get on board here this evening on The Edge of the Unknown, give me a yell, 717-298-7460. Those are the numbers for you to dial in. If you want to shoot me an email message, feel free to do so at any time, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. Holy cats. I've got lots of questions to ask, but the one that you just brought up was interesting in the concept of folks who might have a near-death experience. We might lose consciousness, we might lose death in this life. Can that happen repeated times? Can that happen over and over and over at different intervals during our lives?
Oh, there are stories of people that's happened to, and I believe that can happen during that time, or it can happen in our own personal lives when we go through our developmental stages of life. And I think, to me, when you wrap your head around the notion of how do you organize your thinking and behavior around those events, then they become things that are less traumatic and scary, but things that you look at and say, I need this lesson. I need to understand. And when people really get those lessons at that, then they become, those are the enlightened ones, the ones that embrace that and recognize them for what they are. That's enlightenment. Moving away from fear and less than and everything things, took away, then you move to the sun, when you move to the light, that's really amazing. And you do see people like that. You really do. And we don't, of course we don't pay attention to them as much because, we like to hear, sometimes people that are left in the anxiety and the depression of it all, and you just go, well, there's something beyond that. You need to focus on what's beyond. So I don't know. I really do. I do look at people that are like that, and I go, wow, especially when they've been through it a lot. Those are really enlightening opportunities.
I think it's interesting to talk about it because a lot of folks who, who obviously listen to this kind of show and have discussions about this sort of thing also talk about past lives and other things that have happened. Huh? And again, we're kind of branching off what we were talking about, and I want to get right back into metahabilitation. But I think it's an interesting topic, or at least thought progression to think about those who have had past life, just experiences. Is it possible that they are feeling the same things that other people who might have had near-death experiences, the same idea of trauma, maybe that it was just jerked back into their reality that they normally wouldn't have been thinking about?
Yep. And, I think there is, I think science is, because of the technology that we have now to study brains and to look at all that, I think mainstream science or, contemporary science is catching up with a little bit of that, and again, isn't quite so afraid of that. I think sometimes mainstream science, past life, that type of stuff, and I think, I I think people need to experience that. They need to go back there. I don't understand it fully and completely and know how to utilize it in this framework, but it doesn't scare me. And I look at that as something that I think we need to allow people to do and experience for themselves. So,
I got a question here in our live chat room. If you're listening on the all1broadcast.com website, that is all, the number one broadcast.com, click on the button that says live chat room and join us there. But Craig asked, do you have any ongoing medical issues as a result of your death experience?
No, very lucky. I had,
wow.
I know, it's crazy. It seemed to be this one-time thing after I saw multiple cardiologists. Well, I saw 2 or 3 cardiologists. I had multiple tests. Everything you could possibly imagine was stuck in, out, trying to reproduce the arrhythmia that they thought caused my cardiac event. They couldn't reproduce it. I had to, and that's the time, too, that I would talk to cardiologists about when could I run again, and, oh, you won't be able to run again, you won't be able to swim again, and I really was so tired of hearing everything I couldn't do. So for a long period of time, I did use a medication called the beta blocker, which was really a tough med to be on because it really slows everything down. It gives you weirdest dreams. And I did start to in a cardiac rehab program, and that was very, very helpful. And then I actually started working with a cardiologist who was a runner, and he helped organize my rehab. And the thing that's interesting now, too, is although I have not experienced any other health, my big thing coming back was cognitive delays, processing issues, mental health issues, those survivorship issues. I used to be, well, I still am kind of, but super competitive. And I had to understand that part of my activity level needed to be adjusted, that I didn't have to worry about winning things and doing that, but just being a part of things was very helpful. But yeah, in all honesty, knock on wood, I have not had a reoccurrence of my initial event at all, or even really a close call, but I feel like I'm in pretty good health, yeah.
One of the things that I loved, and I actually mentioned it to you when we talked, before the show, was a quote that you have in your book from Viktor Frankl, when he talks about, in no way should we discard, normal medical models, normal medical theology, normal medical practices, but I'm going to quote it right here. He says, what we must do is simply recognize its limits. And I think that's fascinating to talk a little bit about, yes, we can't turn away medical science, but we also should understand that perhaps we haven't found the end of that and what lies beyond, so we should always seek to find what lies beyond what we know.
Right. Well, Viktor Frankl is an amazing, if you don't know about him, you should Google him because he's an amazing ideology about that situation. But and being part of the medical nursing model, I absolutely believe that there's so much that the traditional medical allopathic model can bring, but it is limited. I experience it is limited. And looking at alternative, or what I like to call complementary medical nursing alternatives, has to be part of your recovery process. You don't want to be foolish or crazy about this, but there are other ways of healing, and to just limit ourselves to that, to make, as the Dalai Lama would even say, to make science as our God and take away the spiritual part of that, or the alternative types of interventions having to do with everything from, how you eat, how you, vitamins you take, sleeping things, patterns, spiritual stuff, mental health issues, dealing with mental health. All those are part of it. And one of the things that I really felt when I was going through this, and I see this now, is, in the medical, if they can't cure something, it's very frustrating for them. Or if they don't have an answer for it all, it's very frustrating, or they get afraid that something bad's going to happen, or, if somebody passes away or there isn't the ultimate recovery process, they feel in some way that they failed. And I think that mindset is one that doesn't allow for the full opening of, yes, here's what we can do, here's what you can do, here's some complementary medicine that may be helpful, and there's a synergy to it. One is not necessarily better than the other. They can be very complementary to one another, and opening ourselves up to that is essential in this part of it. And a lot of the people that I interviewed who did really well did exercise their thought process and moved past just the traditional medicine. And, I got to tell you, you start looking at all the pills that you take, all this kind of stuff, and sometimes it causes more problems than it helps. And so I, embrace that whole notion of there's a wide variety of healing processes. Explore them all, and see how they work together with one another.
My guest here this evening on The Edge of the Unknown, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're talking about Metahabilitation. Check out her website, metahab.com. That's Metahab. If you want to get on board, feel free to give me a yell, 717-298-7460. The number has changed since last week, because we're actually trying to use a universal number here on the All One Broadcast Radio Network. So give me a yell there, 717-298-7460. You can also shoot me an email, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. And of course, you can always find me on Facebook, Edge of the Unknown Radio Show. Shoot me a message there. We're going to take a break in a second, but I'm going to grab a quick email here. Hang on, I'm trying to use 3 different computers here. I'm going to go to, let's see here. Hang on one second. Oh, actually, this comes from Thanks, Please Don't Use My Name. Okay, thanks. No worries, we won't use your name. I appreciate you being on. Can metahabilitation aid in investigation of the paranormal? I, myself, was clinically dead for 45 minutes. I now hear voices and feel that I have contact with others on the other side that I never had before. I passed away when I was 22 and am now 41. And again, thanks. Please don't use my name. No worries. I appreciate you actually writing in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I don't. Let me just say that you're lucky to be able to have those experiences, because I do think that they can inform and bring meaning to your life. So I think that utilizing metahabilitation may help you understand and embrace those gifts, because I think sometimes we look at those and people are afraid and they're not sure of them, and you're always afraid of something you don't understand. But to me, if that's something that you have and it's adding to your life, it's making your life better, it's bringing meaning to your life, then that's great. If it's something that's taking away from you, then you need to really exercise some help in other ways. But if it's something that's adding to it and you feel better, and I think utilizing the notion of metahabilitation will help you understand how to incorporate that into your life and make it, that aspect of your life more meaningful, and living with that.
Excellent. Let's do this. Let's take a quick break here. We're going to be right back with more with Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. If you want to get on board, as I mentioned, the phone number for you to give us a ringy-ding-ding this evening, 717-298-7460. You can also shoot me an email at theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And I've got much more questions, and we actually just got 2 emails in, which are... but these are really actually excellent questions. So I'm going to thank everybody who is writing in that doesn't want to get on board via the phone. No worries. The questions are always awesome. The answers are always more than what you think they will be. Thanks for hanging out with me here late on a Sunday evening, whether you're kicking your week off wrapping your week up. We've got much more coming up here on the Edge of the Unknown with Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Everybody, stick around. We're back right after this.
Looking for the best in vintage clothing? Look no further than Vintage Wears Boutique at vintagewearsboutique.com. Women's classic jackets and coats, skirts and dresses, all just a click away. Check out the latest inventory online for pictures, sizing, and more. Have a particular item in mind you can't find anywhere else? Go to vintagewearsboutique.com. Still stumped? Try their personal shopper service and let them do the work. Find the best in vintage clothing at vintagewearsboutique.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us at vintagewears_ on Twitter, and see us on Pinterest and Tumblr. vintagewearsboutique.com, where the past is your style.
Hey there, A1B listeners. This is Medium Julie MacDonald, host of Medium at Large. Join me Wednesday nights on All One Broadcast, where together with my guests, we journey into the many different worlds and expressions of spirit through mediumship, astrology, nature, indigenous technologies, alternate universes, otherworldly messengers, and much, much more. You just never know where we're going to land, so strap your seatbelts and tune in to Medium at Large on A1B. Listen, it's the only place to be.
Mark Henry here for the cool cats at Natural Vapors, with 2 locations in Western New York and online at naturalvaporsbuffalo.com. Natural Vapors offers a variety of e-cigarettes and accessories for those making the jump from analog smokes. Whether you're new to vaping or you're a seasoned user, Natural Vapors has what you're looking for. First-time vaping? Visit with their dedicated staff and they'll set you up with a starter kit that is customized for you. For the experienced vapors, they carry the latest smooth batteries and tanks by Kanger. And if you're looking for mods, they've got Innokin mods, custom wraps, and much, much more. Natural Vapors offers dozens of e-liquids to fit your flavor fancy, as well as wholesale e-liquids. And hey, all liquids are made in-house from USA FDA-approved ingredients. Don't take my word for it. Check them out yourself. 2 locations in Western New York, Southgate Plaza in West Seneca, and also in the Union Consumer Square Plaza in Cheektowaga. Not from around here or just don't want to leave the house? Order online at naturalvaporsbuffalo.com and have everything delivered right to your door wherever you are. That's Natural Vapors and naturalvaporsbuffalo.com. Tell them Mark Henry sent you.
Chupacabras, there's nothing to talk about. Back to the Edge of the Unknown.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with me here on the Edge of the Unknown. My name is Mark Henry, coming at you every Sunday night here on allonebroadcast.com, All One Broadcast Radio Network. If you miss any portion of this show, always remember you can go to our website, allonebroadcast.com, click on the button that says On Demand, scroll down to find The Edge of the Unknown, hear this show in its entirety at your leisure. You can also find us on a number of different networks, including iTunes. So if you don't hear a show, you can always remember that find it at other places. But I highly suggest you just come to allonebroadcast.com and download and stream the show live as you can right there. If you're listening live through our networks, including the TuneIn Radio app, you can always find us talking live at our chat room on allonebroadcast.com. If you just click on the live chat room button, hey, holy cats, we're all hanging out there. There's a bunch of people in the chat room right now talking. We've got some questions coming through from there. You can feel free to get on board by giving us a ring 717-298-7460, or emailing theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. My guest this evening is Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're talking about her book, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. We're also talking more, honestly, about metahabilitation, a very interesting way to talk to people and help people deal with some very traumatic events that have happened in their lives, whether it is, which we haven't even delved into, addiction, but we're also talking about folks who have had near-death experiences. We're talking about folks who have kind of, gone a little astray from regular life. And Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn is someone who is no stranger to that, as she had a very, very unfortunate accident where she was dead for 22 minutes, but came back and is now here with us talking about how she deals with folks and how she helps folks deal with such experiences as well. Metahabilitation is the topic tonight, and I want to grab an email, but I'm going to scroll back up here. Hang on, because somebody in the chat room asked, Kathy asked, talking about your memory loss, which you talked a little bit about earlier, Dr. Joyce. Hang on, this thing always, as soon as somebody has a comment, it takes me to the bottom of it. Okay, hang on. Nobody say anything in the chat room. Kathy writes, do you remember everything you were experienced on the other side? Do you remember anything when you were clinically dead?
Okay. Hey, so Mark, you can hear me, right?
Absolutely.
I want to make sure. Okay, good, because I just changed my you know what? I do not. I do not have, and I've thought, actually, it is interesting you say that, because there's been many times that I have thought about going to see somebody and trying to tweak that memory. But to be really honest with you, it isn't anything that I thought, well, is this going to make things better for me, or is this going to enhance what I'm doing? So, it doesn't scare me to do it. I guess I've just lost the, notion that, I need to get this information. I don't think it's, for me, it wasn't important information for me to gather to do what I'm doing now. But no, I have there's actually 2 weeks of my life for sure that I have zero memory of, and that's actually from the Friday night before my accident, which happened on Sunday, for about 2 weeks. There was a whole hospital stay, being in ICU, everything that I don't remember at all, and I was transferred to another hospital and didn't remember any of that. So,
is that typical? I honestly, I don't mean to interrupt you, but is that typical with folks who have that sort of thing happen, whether it's a near-death experience or just a very traumatic car accident or a bike accident, or whatever it might happen? Is it typical that people don't remember, or is it more typical that folks have some sort of revelation, or they see things that they might not normally see?
Yeah, I think if you kind of look back, I can remember glimpses of stuff, glimpses of things that I kind of think, well, I wonder what that was about. But I think your brain actually, too, does some protecting around that. Like, I talked to some physicians about that, and they said, really sometimes your brain kind of protects you from that kind of trauma. And that, you were in this deep sleep when, your body is trying to heal itself, too. Because when you really are in a healing process, your body goes into a very deep sleep to help renew and recover different aspects of your system. And so maybe part of it is that, maybe part of it is my brain protected me, maybe part of it is it's there, but I, in some unconscious way, don't really want to remember that. I'll tell you, in some ways, I think it was protective, too, because it didn't allow me, I wasn't fearful even when I came back. When a friend of mine took me swimming again, or I started running again, or I started doing some activities that had really put me in the place where that accident occurred, I kind of laughed because I don't remember any of it, so I wasn't afraid of doing those things. The thing that was the hardest for me, to be really honest, in coming back, it was the coming back, the recognition of things that were not right. My delays in my thinking, my not recognizing people, my not being able to pull together ideas quickly. That was really, very depressing, very difficult. And I'll just tell you another thing when you look at how I think the spirit, that even if you don't initially get into it, there's some sort of spirit world or whatever. About 6 months into my accident, I remember specifically going to bed at night, and at nighttime is really tough because it's quiet. Mm-hmm. Your brain starts working, and you think, "Oh, look at man, you still don't have things together. Is this ever going to come back? Are you ever going to have what you had before? Are you ever?" And it's very hard. And I remember in the anger and the fear and all that comes too. And I remember just finally saying, "I can't do." And I'm very, practice of religion, but I was really away from that. I didn't want to have anything to do with that because I was just too mad. How could this happen to me? I'd done everything right, and now look at this. And this all anger and frustration and fear came to me, and I just literally got on my knees, and I just begged. I said, I can't live like this. I can't live with this anger. I can't live with this fear. I can't live with this anxiety about my future. You have to take this away from me. You have to take this away from me. I can't live like this. And I went to bed, slept really well, and that feeling has never come back, ever.
Interesting.
Ever. And I thought, there's sometimes it is in the total letting go. The total just, okay, this is bigger than I can deal with. I'm going to turn this over. At whatever level you want to do it, I don't know. Maybe there's something there that I felt the next day. I still had to deal with things, but I didn't have that level of anxiety and fear I'd had before.
Which is actually a perfect segue into what we just talked about while we were in the break. And, I mentioned to you that we got some interesting emails in. P, who is our resident skeptic, interesting guy, actually asks, is there a spiritual side of metahabilitation, or can atheists like me use this sort of healing? P, thanks for being on the edge, as always, my friend.
Yeah. No, I first of all, I love the question. I love skeptics are such are a gift because they really help people organize their thinking in a way that makes it cogent and, understandable. So thank you. I would have to say that spirituality is a part of people who have done well. It is not the only part. One of the things that I thought was most interesting, people who I'd interviewed who had near-death events and people who had major and catastrophic life events, in all honesty, they kind of went away from the traditional religion kind of things because they felt like they were too confining, that you had to either be in or be out or whatever. So they kind of went with their own gut on some of that, where this is how I'm going to find meaning in this. This is what's going to happen. Yeah, there was a spiritual part of it, but it wasn't like they became these very religious, they had to believe in a God, that type of thing. But they understood that there was a part to their strength that they drew from, an inner being, from other people around them, from whatever. I actually, and I guess the other thing too is when you talk about, if you exercise, is that going to help you live longer, whatever. If you, have this spiritual part to your life, is that going to, you know what? It can make your life definitely more meaningful. Do you have to have that to have a happy, meaningful, fulfilling life? I don't know. And I think people who maybe don't have that can certainly metahabilitate, because while they're here, they can find meaning in their life while they're here as a direct result of what happened to them.
I think it's interesting that you say that, because there's a lot of people who are dealing with, and this is part of the metahabilitation that we haven't delved into, and I'm going to bring it up right now, with substance abuse, that sort of thing. There are lots of other programs other than 12-step programs. Actually, the Center for Inquiry here in town has a program every week for folks who are looking to, kick whatever habit they're looking, or dealing with. Metahabilitation would be the same sort of thing, right? Let's talk a little bit about your work with folks who are battling those sorts of issues rather than what we've been talking about, whether it's been, a traumatic accident or something where, we've actually lost our lives.
Yeah. Well, the research that I'm actually involved in now is I'm doing a series of workshops based on the workbook for a group of people who are dealing with addiction and dependencies. I'm also dealing with a group of athletes who have gone through a season-ending or career-ending injury, or just getting out of their athletics because their career's over. I'm dealing with people who have soldiers coming back with PTSD. I'm starting to work with that. And so there's a variety of places that you can use Metahabilitation. What I say to them, and especially let's just use addiction and dependency, the group that I'm working with does use the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as their basis. And I always say to people, I do not discourage you from using that. Use it. Where Metahabilitation to me fits in is if you, it's like a fuel additive. If you're doing something and you're engaged and that's helping you, great. But Metahabilitation can be that additive, can be that thing that just kind of takes you over the top and helps you really transcend and understand ultimately what this, beyond the survivorship. And that's kind of how I'm placing it. Some people will just use Metahabilitation as their tool for recovery, but other places are using it in addition to an already existing recovery process, and it's just adding to what they already have.
And that's really interesting, and we kind of talked about that, again, off air, about, one of the biggest concerns with a lot of parents and a lot of people outside of the folks that it actually is happening to is really traumatic experiences on the playing field. Whether you're a professional athlete that's having concussion after concussion after concussion, or a child that is, maybe getting his bell rung, which is such a stupid term to use. How is that actually playing out with these sorts of people in your principles of Metahabilitation?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because in the opening of my book, the foreword, there's a story about a soccer player. He actually played, Division I soccer at Marquette, and he had multiple, 3 concussions pretty close together. And he'd been playing soccer since he was 4, and he had planned on doing this on the, trying to get into the professional level to do this. And he, saw several doctors, had some scans, and basically was told, because concussions have an additive effect, the chances of, if you get another one, the brain damage that can occur as a result of that. And I remember him telling me how he and his parents, they cried because, the life again that he thought he was going to have wasn't going to be there. So I started working with him. He read the book, we did some things, and he actually was on a panel that I did a presentation at Cambridge the summer before last during the Olympics to deal with athletes like that. And one of the things that he talked about was that everything in Metahabilitation, everything I talked about was so true, because it is this notion of your life as you knew it, whether it's a death thing, whether it's a series of concussions, whether whatever, is no more. It's not going to be that way. But what kind of life do you get to choose? How do you go about that? And how do you process yourself through the anxiety and the depression and the change in how you define yourself and all that? How does that come about? And it's very meaningful to him. And I will tell you right now, he's actually going to medical school. So he wants to be an orthopedic surgeon. So there's a lot of, the soccer thing didn't work out, but he ultimately transformed that. And I think that a lot of times we think, I think parents think that all their kids are going to do something glorious, whether it's high school, college, or beyond, and they start getting these injuries because they push them so hard, and then they can't play, and they think this is the end. And you go, no, it's not really the end. it is the beginning of a new kind of thing that you can do. And also, I talk a lot to athletes. Soldiers, the same thing, where they have imbued in themselves at a very early age the ability to understand competition, to fight through certain things, to discipline themselves, to understand, when things don't go that way, how do they, to overcome a loss, those types of things. And I go, you need to take those direct things that you learned on the battlefield, on the soccer field, on the athletic field, or whatever. You need to use those characteristics that got you through whatever you got through, and then we apply those into how you're going to metahabilitate and move forward in your life in a very meaningful way.
My guest here this evening on the Edge of the Unknown, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Give us a yell if you've got a question for us, 717-298-7460. The phone line is always open for you. The Edge of the Unknown at gmail.com is the email address. I do have some emails that I'm going to get to, but this is really interesting. That, you know why it's interesting? Because I thought of it myself. Boy, I'm terribly egotistical. The reason I thought of this, and I always scratch down questions off to the side, and I wanted to ask you this. When people are going through very traumatic experiences, whether it's a massive injury or something like that happened to you where you were clinically dead, so on and so forth, how hard is it to discern between how you feel afterwards and perhaps thinking about the way you felt beforehand, if you still have that recollection, and being able to make something out of both of the ways that you're approaching life after having had something that happened to you that was so dramatic?
So do you mean that, that you think you become this different person post?
Well, right. I mean, is it possible? I mean, afterwards, if you can remember that you were a certain way of thinking of that, you're approaching life in this direction, and then this happens, and now all of a sudden being completely confused and saying, which is the right way to actually approach life now that I have a different perspective?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, stop me if I'm not answering your question correctly, but like for me, for example, I had a certain, I was, competitive. I'm a mother of 3. I had all these things going. The things that were really important to me were, obviously family, spiritual life, professional life, everything. And I got to tell you, that was all gone. How I defined myself, like when people would say, I'm a marathon runner. Well, I couldn't do that anymore. So how I defined myself, the things that I thought were the most important things, whatever, were gone. I didn't recognize my husband, my kids. I couldn't go back to work. I had all those things. So all that changed. And what I deal with people is to recognize that there is a grieving period. There is a period of time where the life you knew isn't anymore. The person you knew maybe isn't anymore. But what can ultimately happen, and I don't say this to people right away, but I say, think about this is where we're going to take them. You can build a different, sometimes a better life than you had before. The things that you thought were important, you look back and go, really? It's not really that important. You have this profound opportunity. So I say to people, you have to spend time in grieving and being depressed. And this is not a psychiatric disorder. This is a normal, this is a rehabilitation process. This is a normal reaction to the fact that everything you had before, you're not going to be able to bring forward. And you have to grieve that. We're going to let you do that, but we are not going to let you stay there. We are going to come back and we're going to get you. And it's part of basically your own hero's journey. It really is a hero's journey, where then you think, okay, these are the pieces that I still have. These are the pieces I want to have. And oh yeah, here's some pieces I hadn't thought about. Here's some pieces that weren't apparent to me, and now I'm going to put these as part of my thing too. So the opening up, the letting go of certain things or certain doors being closed to you, again, It's not an end point. It is a beginning point. And there's make no mistake about it. It's a bummer. It's horrible. It's tough. It's a tough thing to get through. And that's when I think people really need help in understanding that grief and that depression and that moving through that stage. But once you get to what I call the second stage, once you say yes to life, however that's going to be, you don't even know it's going to be, but just I'm going to say yes, then things change. And then you open things up. I mean, I just finished reading Steve Jobs' book by Walter Isaacson.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about a life he knew that wasn't normal, and it wasn't just, I'm not even talking about the cancer that he had, but when he was fired from his own company. I mean, things happen. And he looked at that, and that was I saw a great interview by him just after that happened. That was he couldn't even really talk about it. It was so painful. But what did he do with that? He got bummed out. He got depressed. He did whatever we have to do. But eventually he did that little Pixar thing. That worked out pretty well.
Just a tad.
Yeah.
And I will say
I hope
this.
that answers your question.
No,
Yeah.
no, you did very well. And I'm going to say this. I grew up an Apple kid. I got my first Apple IIe in 1984. I turned around. Right now, I'm looking at an Apple IIe, which I'm actually going to sell on eBay. I'm looking at an iMac, another iMac, first generation iMac. I'm looking at a Mac Pro. And I also have a MacBook upstairs, and I just got rid of my iPhone on Friday. The first Mac product, Apple product rather. Yeah, so Steve Jobs, wherever you are, if you're looking down on me, sorry, brother, I had to do it. I got to get rid of the iPhone. It was a pain in the butt, and not that my new phone is not, but anyway, there I go. I digress. I am a huge Apple fan.
Well,
I ran out and got that book the minute that it came out because I am a huge fan of Steve Jobs, and I'm a huge fan of a lot of the marketing people that he had around him as well. But
well, one of the things I will add to that then too, if you are, because he did this famous talk at one of his talks at Stanford, for the graduating class. And it's a lovely, if you want to Google his speech at, I believe it was Stanford, and this is after he was diagnosed with cancer, and he thought that it was actually, it would be something that the type of pancreatic cancer that you could actually survive from. And he, one of his best lines is, and I love this, he says, death is probably one of the best inventions of life. Death is life's change agent. It allows you to open up to new things. It allows you to see things better, and I love that. Death is probably one of the best inventions of life. It's life's profound change agent. Now, how you use that, how you incorporate your death experience in whatever capacity that is, and use it in your life, that's the key. That's the key. So.
I'm not being rude, but I just actually leaned over. I'm actually holding the hardcover book of the Steve Jobs biography. I'm not going to put it on top of your book. I'm going to just, here, I'll scooch that over to the side. There it goes. No, and I've read it 3 times since I bought it because we're not going to get into that. My guest is more important than my stupid thoughts about the genius and innovation of a one Steve Jobs, who was not the easiest guy to work with, and you know what? Neither am I. We have a lot in common. But my guest this evening on the Edge of the Unknown, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're talking about Metahabilitation and also her book, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. Check out her website. Whether you're listening live right now or if you're going to hear this on a replay, go to metahab.com, metahab.com. If you are listening live and you've got a question for my guest, please feel free to give us a yell, 717-298-7460, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. And I also want to let everybody know, if you're listening on allonebroadcast.com, click on the button that says Live Chat Room. You can always ask me a question there. Find me on Facebook, Edge of the Unknown Radio Show, and shoot me a message there. Like the page, and I'll, obviously give you updates of what's going on with the show, and be able to contact me live while we are talking about it. So this is another question that I have as far as metahabilitation goes. this is not something that is limited to adults, where it's people who have had traumatic things happen, or in your case, with the fact that you were clinically dead for a little bit, and other people who might have had the same kind of experience. This might actually be something that people can incorporate with a number of other issues at different ages, not just for folks who have lived half their lives and then are suddenly confused and broken up by something that happened. This is something that people can incorporate at any level?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm working with this a couple of clients of mine who are going through a divorce and using the workbook for that. I'm working with, like I said, soldiers with coming back home with a variety of things, especially, PTSD. I'm using that with starting to talk to people who are working with younger people who have eating disorders. I mean, whatever sort of is throwing you off, this has, using the notion and the system of metahabilitation, it really goes in an inside journey. It really does. It gives you an inside journey. It helps you open up ideas and thoughts about yourself. Where are you going? What do you have? How are you going to move forward? Who are the people you're going to surround yourself and moving forward with? All these kinds of things. It really helps you organize your recovery process. And it is a process, and it's over time, and it's almost like a never-ending thing. And so it helps with that a lot. It's interesting, too, when you talk about little children, because they're just so adorable. And what they blame, get a lot of this stuff because they don't hold judgment. They don't hold judgment about, well, I don't think I can do this, or they don't have that. They haven't gone through stuff to hold those kinds of judgments. So they're very open to those types of things. And talking about, other side stories, I actually have read books and, read about interviews of young children, like cancer patients or kids that have gone through major illness or injury, have been visited by grandparents or somebody that, and they'll say, yeah, I saw so-and-so. And the parents will go, who? Because it'll be somebody who had passed away. And they're very descriptive about the person, what they said to them or whatever. And so I love working with little younger people. And then what I really work with them, especially, too, is with their parents or their loved ones, because, it's been traumatic for them, too. But no, little ones are so awesome to do that, because their openness.
And obviously, when you're working with something like that, where it's not necessarily a clean slate, but it is a slate that offers a little bit more leeway back and forth for, believability and that sort of thing, or at least trust, than some other folks who might even have that little tinge of reality of what happened to them beforehand, where they might be a little bit more skeptical.
Yes, absolutely. I really believe that. And I think the other thing, too, even when using this, is with children especially, and I work, is this whole notion also of choice, that you allow the choice of what you want to do, where do you want to go with this, how are you incorporating this into your life, and letting little children actually, or even, I'm on a board where we deal with adolescent and young adult cancer patients, and recognizing, part of the recovery process is making choice and allowing people to be, because when this happens, you lose control of everything. And that's part of the depression and the despair, is the loss of control. When you start saying, well, no, here's what you can control. Here's, hey, you make these decisions, and putting them through these systems or these steps or whatever you want to call it, allows them to then regain some control, some hope, some optimism, which relieves some of the despair and the depression, which leads to, looking at a hopeful, productive future, whatever that can be, whatever that's going to be. But I really do, I think, for all patients, and especially younger ones too, everything's always, decisions are made. sometimes when you start turning over and saying, well, what do you want to do? Okay, here you can eat this or that, or you can do this or that, or you can, allowing some control and feeling like they have some kind of process in their recovery that's part of them, it's a big thing.
Something just popped up in the live chat room, and I'm not sure that they were actually asking this, but I'm going to ask it. As far as metahabilitation goes, what about people who have existing conditions like autism, ADHD, ADD, whatever we want to call any of that sort of thing? Is there a place for metahabilitation with those sorts of diagnoses that have been passed down to, to kids or young adults?
That is a great question, and that is a great question. I'm so glad that somebody brought that up, because I think it's very difficult with some of those things when we start to, number one, label people. One of the classes that I teach at Sac State is a beginning class on neuroscience, so we go into all these kinds of things, and I get nervous about the labeling of things. I always also get nervous about being afraid of these things. Oh my gosh, my child has this or that. And instead saying, no, some people a lot of people with ADD or ADHD are unbelievably productive professional adults. It's how are you utilizing that energy? There's energy there. There is profound energy there. How are you utilizing that energy? How are you helping that person balance their life? Same thing with autism. So, I really do believe in years gone by, we used to see people that were autistic, and we kind of say, yeah, he or she a little bit tough to relate to, but they are an amazing artist, or they're an amazing writer. And sometimes we forget this. We tend to focus on what is not there instead of what is there. So I use metahabilitation very much in those situations. And number one, stop labeling these things. And number two, to get into these and say, with this, what is this bringing to me? What is the meaning I understand about life and individuals and the process of things now that I didn't understand had I not had a child with this, or had I not had this happen to me? What do I know now? It's transformative. So looking at, one of the plays I went to here in Sacramento, a gentleman wrote a play about his son who had autism. And he said he just kept focusing on the fact that, well, my son won't do this, his son was this amazing artist and gamer. And he made these video programs and everything, and he said, wow, when I stopped focusing on what he couldn't do and looked at what he could do, it was just like, oh my gosh, what am I worried about, sort of thing. So I understand there's a whole scheme with regard to the autism spectrum and those types of things. But just in general, I think, again, metahabilitation fits in really well in these cases, mostly for family and friends, to see what is a productive, positive part of this child in your life and how you move through versus the stuff that you perceive as being negative or not there.
Interesting that you say that, because Pete, I'm going to grab this email. I'm going to skip over some other ones. theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com is the way to get on board via email. 717-298-7460 is the way to get on board. Via the phone line, Pete, who is listening online, says, I was in a motorcycle accident 12 years ago and had no inclination towards art or painting. I am now an incessant painter, have been in local shows, and am very successful in Cleveland, but have never had a desire before my accident. Any thoughts on how this happened? I don't care how it happened because I'm terribly happy with my life today. Pete, thanks for writing in.
Pete, I love that. I think that's great. Yeah, actually, I think I saw something on the Today Show one time where somebody else had this horrible accident, and they were this unbelievable. They didn't even know how to play the piano before, but after the accident, something happened, and they became this beautiful piano player. Beautiful. So, again, it's weird when things happen. That's why we're going to learn so much more about your condition now that we have the tools with regard to neurology and neuroscience. We have the tools to really look in the brain and see what's going on as it's working. But my sense is that it's sort of like if you took a snow globe and you shook it up and the snow landed in a certain way to make some configuration. That's what happened with your brain, that, things were shaken up. And maybe there were certain areas of your brain that are there but just weren't tapped into. And for whatever reason, those areas recovered faster or became more prominent and opened that up for you in a way that's very profound. And I think it's lovely that you didn't shy away from that. You just say, well, yeah, I'll take it for what it is, and this is what I can do, and this is what I have now, and this is the gifts that I have. But I think it's really one of those things that in the process of the trauma, there's been connections, reconnections, different communications, different neural networking that occurred that said, boom, this is where we go, especially like in your occipital lobe where the visual cortex is. What happened there, especially with art? What do you see now? What do you understand now? What colors are apparent to you? Things that you might not have seen. And it just kind of shook that up and opened that up for you. What a really cool story. That's a great story.
And again, Pete, if you want to share any of your artwork, please send it to me at the same email address that you. I mean, I'm a huge art nut.
And Pete, please, let me get if I can throw out my hello.
Yeah, no, you're there.
Yeah, okay. If I can throw out my email address, it's JMF Joyce Michael JMF at metahab.com. So JMF at metahab.com, metahab.com. If you want to share some of your thoughts or whatever with me, I'd love to read about those. So, great.
Very cool. I like that. Thanks for writing in. And anybody else, as I mentioned, you can write in at any time, theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. Feel free to touch base with me during the week when the show is not on. I answer all of my emails personally, and if you've got a suggestion for a show or you want a follow-up with a past guest, I will make sure that I get right back to you and give you the information that you are looking for. My guest here this evening on The Edge of the Unknown, as I take you up until 10 o'clock, as I want to do each and every Sunday evening, is Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're talking about Metahabilitation, and we're also talking about her book, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. You can find that at Amazon.com, but the best way to get all the information for Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn and the book is to go to her website, as she just mentioned, metahab.com, METAHAB. Find us at allonebroadcast.com for the next half hour or so at our live chat room. If you've got a question, you can certainly send it there. So I want to go right back to talking about implementing this on your own. This is obviously not something that you need to go to a million different classes, or perhaps I'm speaking incorrectly, but it's something that you can learn, take, put into your own life, and then be able to share with those around you. Is that correct?
Yeah, I made it, it's interesting as, like I said, things evolve. And so the idea came out, I actually went around the world kind of talking about it, but then we had to put it into a place where it became not just a concept and an idea, but something that was more fruitful, and that's when the book came out. Well, the book was great, and it really the book is set up in a way where it does explain what metahabilitation is, the system, and then there are 6 stages to metahabilitation. And it turned out I interviewed 6 people from my initial work, and each of their stories profiles one of the stages and helps you see how to move from one stage to the next. So that worked out great. And I will tell you this, the other thing, when the book came out, before it was published, I had some beta readers. I had some people read it, and I wanted feedback on what they thought about the book. And 2 things they consistently said was, I want to see pictures, and I want to know where these people are now. So my initial research was finished in 2007. The book came out in 2011, and so before the book was published, I was able to interview each one of the people again who are in the book. And one of the things that was most astounding to me is I always was very impressed with them, but they really do look at the future. So their event is almost like a thing in the past. They want to tell you what they're doing now. So like one of the guys I interviewed was a rugby player at UC Berkeley, and he was in a single car accident, and he had spinal cord injury, and he started a whole organization to raise money for disabled athletes, and he graduated. He's an entrepreneur. He's an amazing guy. And he would just, it's almost like, yeah, I had that accident, and he's in a wheelchair, but he's doing this, and he's doing that, and let me tell you what I'm doing. And I was so impressed by that. So as it came about, too, then I thought, no, we can't just, the book's not enough. People need to know how to progress through each stage, and that's where the workbook came out. So clearly, and on the website, you can purchase the workbook. That I would suggest the book and the workbook together are something that can help you move through metahabilitation or move through your recovery process in a way that makes sense and that is very easy to read, move through. Now, for clinicians and therapists, I do have a manual, and I do some workshops that actually certify them to use Metahabilitation, and we're starting that out. But for the individual or the family and friends, there are workbooks that you can use for that.
My guest again this evening is Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Very heated discussion going on right now in the live chat room, and we're going to get to that. But I've got another email that I'm going to get to, and hang on, what time is it here? It is 9:30. I'm going to ask this question first. Because you just mentioned the rugby player who was terribly motivated to do something. In your studies, in your experiences with Metahabilitation, have you found a polarization of folks or more of a median of those who accept what they've got, want to move on, those who might accept it but don't want to do anything different, or those who are completely obtuse to any different way of thinking and kind of fall into a more awful place of being than they were in the first place, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And, actually, that's one of the things that people bring to me. Did you study people who didn't metahabilitate? And the answer to that is really no. Do I deal with patients who haven't done it? Absolutely. Do I see people? Do people come at me and say, well, just because so-and-so can do it doesn't mean I couldn't do it? And I don't get nervous or worried about that, but I do introduce to them the notion that I, as a human being, as a clinician, have a profound belief that we all have the capacity to do this. What obstacles have been laid down that prevent somebody to do that, that is where we need to go. It's not that you can't do this. I don't minimize people's trauma or pain. I don't ever say to anybody, well, you can just get, no, it's nothing like this. We do have the capacity to do this. We have not only the capacity to survive, but thrive. And we see that with bugs, with organisms, with all sorts of things in the biophysical world do this all the time. We as human beings have that capacity. What has gone on in our lives in the past, the trauma may be so overwhelming, it's hard to get through. Those are things that need to be dealt with, but I still believe the capacity is there. And for some people, it becomes more apparent, and I don't want to say it's easier, but they can pick it up a little more quickly. For other people, it's tougher. It's tougher, or the trauma may be so severe that they don't want to deal with it, they just want to bury it, and then it will come out in other ways. And then for some people, it's just so overwhelming that they just can't get past it. We know that from the study on survivorship. We know that there are basically those three categories. My work and what I do is I really believe there are a lot of people who can and want to do that, so I open that up. For people who are having problems, and one of the research things I'm working on now is actually a Metahabilitation analysis tool or an assessment tool. And we use that to help guide clinicians and individuals into where are they now, what do they have that will enable them to do that, what from a therapeutic point of view do we need to do to help you move in this way. There is no cookie-cutter approach to this. Not everybody's the same, just as not every trauma is the same. But there are, definitely people who will be more into this, some people be more resistant to this, and some people who are just too overwhelmed. And we need to, we can't just push that away. We need to work with that and say what is going on there and how can we influence them in this more positive way. Because who wants to live like that?
Well, exactly.
People don't want to live like that. And again, I don't minimize the trauma. I never say to anybody, hey, you just need to, no. I go, what happened to you is horrible. No, I will never say, it is. But here's how we're going to move you in a way that you are going to understand the trauma and the horror of what you've been through. Grieve, be depressed, but we cannot leave you in despair. We are going to present some sort of hope and optimism so that eventually you can move in a more productive way.
My guest here this evening on The Edge of the Unknown, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're going to be back right after this. We're going to take a fast break. If you want to get on board, you've got a couple of more minutes to do so. Give us a yell at 717 298-7460. You can also shoot me an email at theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com. And if you want to find me on Facebook, you can also shoot me a message there. Edge of the Unknown at, well, actually not Edge of the Unknown, at Edge of the Unknown Radio Show. And you can also find us at the live chat room at allonebroadcast.com. Just click on the button that says live chat room. Very interesting conversations going on there. And we've got a couple of questions to get to when we get back, but you've still got plenty of time to talk to Joyce Mikal-Flynn. We're talking about Metahabilitation. Check out her website, metahab.com. We're back right after this. Thanks for hanging out with me, Mark Henry, here on The Edge of the Unknown late on a Sunday night. We're back in just a couple seconds.
Looking for the best in vintage clothing? Look no further than Vintage Wears Boutique at vintagewearsboutique.com. Women's classic jackets and coats, skirts and dresses, all just a click away. Check out the latest inventory online for pictures, sizing, and more. Have a particular item in mind you can't find anywhere else? Go to vintagewearsboutique.com. Still stumped? Try their personal shopper service and let them do the work. Find the best in vintage clothing at vintagewearsboutique.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us at vintagewears_ on Twitter, and see us on Pinterest and Tumblr. vintagewearsboutique.com, where the past is your style.
Hey there, A1B listeners. This is Medium Julie MacDonald, host of Medium at Large. Join me Wednesday nights on All One Broadcast, where together with my guests, we journey into the many different worlds and expressions of spirit. Through mediumship, astrology, nature, indigenous technologies, alternate universes, otherworldly messengers, and much, much more. You just never know where we're going to land. So strap your seatbelts and tune in to Medium at Large on A1B. Listen, it's the only place to be.
Mark Henry here for the cool cats at Natural Vapors, with 2 locations in Western New York and online at naturalvaporsbuffalo.com. Natural Vapors offers a variety of e-cigarettes and accessories for those making the jump from analog smokes. Whether you're new to vaping or you're a seasoned user, Natural Vapors has what you're looking for. First-time vaping? Visit with their dedicated staff and they'll set you up with a starter kit that is customized for you.
For the experienced vapors, they carry the latest smooth batteries and tanks by Kanger. And if you're looking for mods, they've got Innokin mods, custom wraps, and much, much more. Natural Vapors offers dozens of e-liquids to fit your flavor fancy, as well as wholesale e-liquids. And hey, all liquids are made in-house from USA FDA-approved ingredients. Don't take my word for it. Check them out yourself. 2 locations in Western New York, Southgate Plaza in West Seneca, and also in the Union Consumer Square Plaza in Cheektowaga. Not from around here or just don't want to leave the house? Order online at naturalvaporsbuffalo.com and have everything delivered right to your door wherever you are. That's Natural Vapors and naturalvaporsbuffalo.com. Tell them Mark Henry sent you.
Chupacabras, there's nothing to talk about. Back to the edge of the unknown.
You know, if there's a world without chupacabras, I don't want to live in it because, okay, yeah, you know, everybody's tired of me saying that. I love chupacabras. What a great idea. I don't know. So it's kind of cool, right? Yeah. Hey, this is The Edge of the Unknown. My name is Mark Henry. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Sunday evening. My guest this evening, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Check out her website, Metahab.com. We're talking about Metahabilitation. You can also find more information about her book, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. Some workbooks that we've been talking about this evening. If you have been through a very trying time, if you've been through something traumatic, something that has been a giant crisis in your life, you might want to look into Metahabilitation as a way of getting back on your feet, finding your path, finding a good way to continue living on with your life if you're having difficulty with it. No matter what, you know, line of work you're in, no matter what line of, what actually wouldn't be a way of saying that, what line of way that you have been damaged by life, but we've been talking about a number of different things tonight. From Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn's perspective, coming back from being clinically dead for 22 minutes, we're also talking about folks who have had traumatic experiences due to substance abuse. We're talking about people who have had problems due to sports injuries, that sort of thing. So it's not something that is just strictly for folks who have been banged up in this way or another. It's for folks who have been banged up by life in a lot of different ways. So check that out, Metahab.com. The Edge of the Unknown at gmail.com is your way to get on board this here radio program via email. And you can always give us a phone call if you so choose to do so. We have had quiet phones tonight, but we've got a couple more minutes, so feel free. 717-298-7460. That is the way to get on board there. And again, you can always find me on Facebook, Edge of the Unknown at... that's the second time I've done that. Just go to Facebook, type in Edge of the Unknown Radio Show, and you'll find me there. I'm going to go back to the emails here. And this one just popped in. Taryn writes in, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Taryn writes in, what happens when recovery doesn't happen no matter what you do? Taryn, thanks for being on the edge. Interesting question.
Well, I guess that's a very difficult question for me because I'm not exactly sure what you mean recovery doesn't happen.
Sure.
I think there's levels to recovery. There's a variety of ways to recover. It's not necessarily also a linear thing that you have this and you get better.
It's not. Yeah, it's not cut and dry. It's not. Here's your
not
answer.
At all. You know.
Yeah, it's not. This is going to work for you, and that's all there is to it, right?
Right. No. And the other thing too is, as you go through Metahabilitation, or even some recovery programs, there's a process in there. You start to see some things improve, and as something may improve even slightly, it starts opening up other ideas and ways of recovery for you. So it's very difficult to say, you know, whether it can never happen. For example, for example, let's say, well, I gave you the example of Dominic, who had a spinal cord injury, and he is in a wheelchair.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could say, well, he isn't really recovered because he's still in a wheelchair. Well, when you speak to him and you ask him, do you think he'll ever walk again? He absolutely says yes. He thought it would happen sooner than later, but he doesn't see his full recovery as being, because I'm not up and walking, I'm not recovered. He is in a wheelchair, but he is recovered enormously because he adapted. He is in a wheelchair, but he went on to finish school, to do what he can do, to make, he can. And now he is an amazing hand cyclist. And it was interesting when I went to Cambridge to talk to the Sports and Society conference there, and he reminded me over and over again, make sure you talk, for the adaptive athletes. They're not handicapped, they're not alternative, it's adaptive athletes. They adapt into different things, and he has made great strides in that way. So when you look at, well, if you can never recover, maybe you have a definition of recovery, and if you're not getting there, you're thinking, well, I haven't recovered. Maybe you need to look at what is your definition of recovery, what is the process you're using, and maybe there's long and short-term goals to your recovery that you might be missing, and so you're thinking, well, I'm not recovering. So I hope that answers the question.
I hope so. I hope so. And I think that's what a tough thing to answer, though, because everybody's. I was going to fall back into hip language. Everybody's trip's a little bit different there. Yeah, hey. But the truth is everybody's journey is always different, and there is no one way that anybody can say this is the exact way that you have to go, and this is the exact way that you have to live, and this is the exact decision that you have to make. I mean, and that's part of the healing process, is understanding that every decision that you make is going to have a different outcome at the end of it. So choose wisely, right?
Well, and I think the other thing, too, is identifying what recovery is. Like, let's say, I used to run a 7-minute mile. I don't do that anymore. Does that mean I didn't recover? Or does that mean I didn't recover? I think I recovered way more fully than that, and that has nothing, being able to run at that level. So I think it's so, when you use Metahabilitation, I think you push past the traditional or normal or what, your one guest, you're talking about your guest, the standard way of what we see as recovery, and say, no. Well, what does recovery mean? What does that mean? We think about mainstream recovery. Think past that. Think past what we consider mainstream recovery and look at what is you are able to do and focus on the stuff you're able to do. What do you want to do and focus on how to get there, and appreciate each one of those things as you move forward. Because one success will build to another success, which builds to another success. So don't limit your notion of what recovery is.
I'm going to grab another email here. We've got plenty. Actually, we've got 2 more emails to get to as we take you up until 10 o'clock here on the Edge of the Unknown. Again, a quick reminder to everybody who is listening and those who might be downloading this at a later date on iTunes or any number of other places that you can find the show. Next week, there is no live show. I will be back on February 9th. Going to be a very cool show. We're going to have Winter Lake on. We're going to be talking about Satanism and black magic. Holy cats, a big difference from what we're talking about tonight. But Winter is a really interesting guy, and that's what this show is all about. Your questions, your comments about the supernatural, the paranormal, the weird, the unexplained, that's what we do here. And we're talking about healing processes tonight with Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Stephen writes in and asks, I am always concerned about this, and not necessarily because the doctor, again, I'm reading this word for word, and not necessarily this because the doctor sounds like a very smart person that doesn't promise the world. But what about the people who fall into holding on to psychics and others who tell them what to do? That is not healthy, and that scares me. Stephen, thanks for writing in.
So, holding on to psychics who say this is the where you need to go, or this is how.
I guess that's what he's getting at. Like I said, I don't write them. I just read them.
Yeah. So I think for that, I would say whether it's a psychic, you have to gain control of your own life. You have to see control of your own life. You have to take that. You can listen to what people say, but then you bring that into your own processing of information and say, well, this I'll take, this I'll put to the side, and this is how I will move forward with this. So I don't think that you need to take 100% of anything or rely on that. It's really one of those things that you look at, understand what they're saying, how does that fit with what you want to do, and then move forward with that piece of information.
I want to ask this, as far as metahabilitation goes, how flexible is it with anything else that I might be doing, whether it's physical, rehab, whether it's stuff that I'm already working on from, a standpoint of going to church or anything else that I might actually be doing in my life. How does it all work together?
Well, as I said, I think it's, and I don't always, I never tell people, hey, this is the way, this is the only answer.
Sure.
I say this is an answer. And it can be you can just take this as it is, or you can add it to your existing recovery rehabilitative process, because it opens up certain ideas for you that maybe didn't come through on what you're doing now, or it's a synergistic kind of a thing. So even if you're going through physical therapy for it, it will help you having your mind strengthened around this, having hope and optimism, which, by the way, has been studied a lot, especially as it affects, brain neurotransmitters and those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
So being hopeful and optimistic is not just a good idea. It changes brain chemistry, and it affects your thought process and your strength through that. So it's something that you use in addition to it is an add-on to what you already have. It's a very, and the other thing that I love about it, it's simple. It's a simple thing. And I had I looked at that, and the book's not that long, and the workbook's not that long, and at first I looked at that and think, wow, I've worked on this for years, and I thought, no, it's perfect. Because when people are going through whatever they're going through, they don't need ginormous, but they need something simple that they can follow and make sense, and they can go back, and they can reread, and all of that. So it's a very simple process, but very profound in in the meaning that it can provide for you.
How often is it that someone reaches out to you versus you dealing with a patient that is going through a time that they might need to have something like we've been talking about? What's the difference in that, where there's someone who just has no idea where to go, and they find you, and then they go through this program, they go through Metahabilitation, versus you reaching out to the folks that you're working with on a day-to-day basis, because you are a practicing nurse. You are, you're not just a professor. You actually talk to patients on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, well, where I see, when I do a lot of speaking, and I will get people who will email me, or I'll get people who will call me, and it really, it's one of the things that fuels what it is that I'm doing, because you see people in pain. People are in pain, and they haven't, been exposed to the hope and the optimism and a place to go where they can move through this recovery process. And I'm always very touched by these people, because they're lost. They're scared. They're angry. They're all this thing. And I look at them and go, let me just give you a place to go. Let me give you something that will bring forth some control that you can now exercise in your recovery process. Let's do that. And so I get a lot of people who will reach out to me, especially after I give, like I said, talks, or, I am teaching at Sac State. One of the classes I do teaches on neuroscience. I also do with the therapy program. I do some work with Metahabilitation around there. So we start to deal with therapists who are implementing this in their own therapeutic protocols. So yeah, it's tough. It's there, and when you see it, and you think you have something that can, this lifeline that can help people, it's very profound. It's very fulfilling and helps me keep going.
An interesting way to look back at your career and who you are. Would you change anything, the way that things have happened, knowing what you know now, despite all of the other, quite frankly, tragedies that have happened?
Actually, it's funny that you should say this, because one of the things that I talk to people is about the notion of the gift. And I look at what happened to me as being a gift, and it's perfect. And I wouldn't change anything. Now, at the time, some people would say to me, oh, wow, boy, you must have been saved for a reason. There had to be a reason. And that used to bother me a lot, because there was a lot of emphasis that, when you get nervous about, well, what am I supposed to do? Why am I here? Whatever. Well, once you kind of get, just say, hey, for right now, I just want to wake up in the morning and be alive. That's all I want to do. I want to start getting my mind. I want to start in small things. But as time has progressed, it's become extremely apparent to me why I did come back. What do I have to offer? What things can I do to improve the human condition? So I look back at this and go, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. It has changed my life in a way that, had I not had this, I wouldn't know what I know today. And I'm not the only one who says that. People I interview, people, not even in the book, but patients of mine, other people that have gone through bad things, but come out of it. And again, they wouldn't have chosen it. It's not something that they wanted to happen, but it happened. And once it happened, after they decided to move forward, they look back on it and they think, wow, it really did make my life the way it is now. It really did bring a part to my life and my being that, had I not gone through this, I wouldn't know what I know now. So, yeah, no, I see it as a gift, and that's how I look at it. It is a gift. And then when, it's like the hero's journey. When you come back and do all that, then you come back and you talk to people about it, and that's the gift you give to other people.
Do you believe in karma, and does that play any role in any way of approaching metahabilitation with an open mind to any other facet of the way that anybody should approach any change or difference in the way that we live going forward?
Well, I definitely believe in karma, and I believe in energy, and I really do. I think that there's energy out there. How can you affect energy, force, whatever you want to call it? What kind of energy can you put out there? I think it really does make a difference, and I am choosing to put out good energy. Now, I will tell you, I'm not always up. I get, certain times I'm down, certain times I get worried. There's things that I go, how am I doing, what's going on? Because even pushing this, it's like sometimes pushing a rock up a hill. You get anxious, you get scared, you get all those kinds of things. But then I look at it and I think, there's energy in all those emotions. What kind of energy do I want to make? So I'm going to turn that energy that's negative or fearful or whatever and turn it into something that's more positive and just go that way. But I think putting that good energy out there and into the universe and making that a positive thing not only changes me, but it does affect and influence the people around us. Just look at, if you're in a place, I talk to my students about this too. If you're in a place where people are really depressed or not, depressed and down and talk about people and it's a really negative thing, it sucks you into that. You can get sucked into that. And you walk and you go, wow, that feels, so if
totally.
That can happen, then you have to look at, there's the other part of that that's positive. What if you're around people who are more optimistic? People are more positive. People who don't use their time talking about other people, but talk about a book they read or people they know or a movie they saw or something more positive.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I tell my students, don't ever tell me you have a problem. Tell me you have an opportunity. Because every negative is just looking for a vertical awareness and turning it into something positive. And
True.
I don't mean to be, Pollyannish about it.
Right. It's not this is an Up With People interview, but honestly, there's a lot of truth to that.
Thing.
Sure.
Yes. And you have to remind yourself and then remind other people that this is, even I'll tell patients, they come in, I said, I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I want you to go at it. I want you to get pissed. I want you to do everything, get mad. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do that. And once you got that out of your system, then we're going to start talking about how you're going to move past that. Because you have to go through that you got to let that out in order to open yourself up for the more positive ideas and things like that.
Well, last thoughts, because we got to wrap this here radio program up, and I can't believe I just actually used the term "up with people." Holy cats! Gosh, I'm dating myself. I'm old. This sucks. Anyway, my guest this evening here on the Edge of the Unknown this evening has been Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn. Go check out her website, metahab.com, metahab.com. We've been talking about metahabilitation, a way of rehabilitation. Very interesting stuff. Thanks for everybody who wrote in. Thanks for everybody who was chatting incessantly on the allonebroadcast.com live chat room. Check out the book, Turning Tragedy into Triumph, at metahab.com. And before I let you go, what have you got going on in the next little bit here? Because we talked a little bit about this. I want everybody else to know what you've got cooking, and hopefully we can do this again, perhaps in the fall, and do a little catch-up of what you were working on in the spring.
What I have cooking right now is, like I said, I have 3 pretty good research agendas, and where I'm implementing the book and the system with a pilot group of people with addictions and dependency. Number 2, I am going to several different colleges going to utilize Metahabilitation in their curriculum, in their counseling programs. The third thing I have going on is I'm wrapping up and doing some work on the Metahabilitation assessment tool. And lastly, the big thing, I am going to Canada in February. I think I told you about that, to present to their military people to utilize Metahabilitation for their soldiers returning home, especially the ones with PTSD and other types of crisis. So those are just a few of the things I have going on the next couple of months, but it's great. It's busy. It's my bliss. It keeps me going. I love it. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk about this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming back on. I know it's been a little bit since we talked last, and I'm sure when I first called you on your cell phone, you were like, how the hell did he still have that cell phone number?
It was great fortune for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We need to do this again. Let's catch up in the fall and see how you are doing, and another revisit to Metahabilitation, because what a great way to approach life. What a great way for people who are going through some really tough times that need a little bit more than what they might actually be getting. It is a blessing and a great service that you are providing for everybody, and I appreciate you being on the Edge of the Unknown.
Happy to. All right. Signing off, and stay warm.
Absolutely. Hang on 1 second. We're just going to wrap things up here. And yes, Dr. Joyce Mikal-Flynn, my guest here, as I mentioned. She's in she's not in Los Angeles. She's in California. which is a heck of a lot warmer than it is here. But again, check out her website, metahab.com, metahab.com. Metahabilitation, very interesting way to look at fixing yourself up, getting a little bit extra help that you might need. My name is Mark. Thanks for hanging out with me this evening here on the Edge of the Unknown. Next week, we've got a best of show while the Super Bowl is going on. After that, awesome show with Winter Lake, talking black magic, Satanism, anything that you've never understood about it, you can give me a yell. theedgeoftheunknown@gmail.com, as always. Find me during the week. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. And remember, when you've stopped questioning, you've stopped thinking. See you next time here on The Edge of the Unknown.